Hi, my name's David Stein. Today, what I'd like to talk to you about is the use of virtual and augmented reality technology in mental and physical healthcare. Particularly, the three topics that we're going to be covering today are pain control, followed by rehabilitation, getting people back into everyday life after long periods of ill health or acute injuries. And finally, we'll be talking about the use of virtual reality in particular for mental health care treatments, and also the use of virtual and augmented reality in education and special educational needs scenarios. What we're going to start off by talking about, as I mentioned, was pain control. Now, a major issue with pain, particularly acute pain, is anticipation and fear. It seems to worsen our experience of pain, but quite considerably by the research that's been done. Now, nowhere is this more noticeable than with younger children, particularly prior to them receiving vaccinations and other injections. In Brazil, they've come up with an incredibly clever approach to using virtual reality to alleviate this. So I'll stop talking now. Let's have a look at how they've achieved this. I think you'll be impressed.
This is VR Vaccine. The VR vaccine is an immersive adventure where the children become a hero, about to receive a powerful shield.
Tudo bem, Luigi? Você gosta de super-herói?
To make it work, we need one VR gear, one smartphone for the children, one for the nurse, and the VR vaccine app.
Você voltou! Você voltou!
And what the children experience in the virtual world is matched step by step by the nurse that follows the story on a second screen.
Pronto. Agora o fruto de fogo. Mas ó, vamos lá. Bem rapidinho. Peraí.
All simultaneously calming and entertaining children while helping the nurses to better perform the vaccination.
Funciona, funciona, funciona! Obrigada, obrigada!
Caramba, filho, o que você achou disso?
Legal.
É a primeira vez que eu vejo, em 15 anos da minha atuação profissional com vacinas, que a realidade virtual pode transferir a dor e entretenimento.
Ele chorou em todas que ele tomou desde que ele nasceu. E dessa vez não. Até achei que ele ia dar um showzinho aqui hoje.
Porque quando eu era pequena tinha medo, mas agora não tem mais não.
The day with no more crying in the vaccination room is closer than we think.
Remarkable, isn't it? The effect of using virtual reality as a distraction technique seems to have turned this experience from a traumatic one to an almost enjoyable one, and seems to have, well, tangibly reduced the pain that these children are going through, or certainly the pain that they're aware of and experiencing. The question is this translatable to adult care? Is this actually reducing the pain that people are experiencing, or is it just making them not aware of the pain that they're experiencing? Well, this next video answers both of these questions, where we talk about using virtual reality as a method of distracting even adults away from acute pain, particularly in situations like burns and treatment of burns. And we actually have a look at the brain scans and see the effect it's having not only on the experience of pain, but on the actual transmission of pain signals from the nerves to the brain. So let's have a look at this.
The goal of this virtual reality game isn't to beat out your opponent or destroy aliens. It's to help put a stop to pain. It's a technique that helps distract patients from painful procedures.
We found that virtual reality can get patients through any number of painful procedures. We focused on burn care. It's an elaborate distraction, a way to pull people's attention away from the procedure itself and the pain that the procedure causes.
Burn patients, most of the time their pain is well controlled by pain medications, but during certain procedures, when they're having their wounds cleaned, for example, or when they're doing physical therapy stretching exercises, the pain is much higher and is often uncontrolled pain.
This virtual game, called Snow World, immerses patients into an alternate reality where they can swoop through an icy, snowy canyon and throw snowballs at snowmen, penguins, and igloos.
What's exciting about Snow World is it's a paradigm shift away from just relying solely on pain medications and shows the power of the human mind for helping patients control their own pain.
The experience is so engaging that patients have reported great success.
We're finding that that drastically reduces their subjective experience of how much pain they feel.
To test the virtual game, the pain patients might feel during a procedure is simulated with a thermal device on a volunteer's skin. It creates brief periods of heat-related pain.
And what was your worst pain during painful stimulus?
3.
Don't worry, it doesn't harm, but it's enough to cause a reaction. Volunteers are then asked to rate their pain when playing the game.
So how much pain did you feel during that last pain stimulus?
2.
Researchers are working to find out whether the virtual reality game affects the brain in the same way pain medications do.
We've also done brain scan studies showing large reductions in pain-related brain activity during virtual reality.
They've found that regions of the brain that register pain showed the least amount of activity with a combination of virtual reality and pain medication.
We're not replacing the pain meds, but we're amplifying the effectiveness of the overall pain control by using this non-pharmacologic approach.
Using the VR approach to distract attention away from discomfort is the ultimate 3D reality experience.
Ultimately, the more we can get their attention, capture their attention, the more pain relief there's going to be.
Again, remarkable results there. And as you noticed from the video, when they actually carried out brain scans on the patients, we discovered that not only was the perception of pain reduced, but the actual triggering and signals of pain were reduced. Obviously, the general consensus seems to be that you don't want to use this to completely replace pain medication, but it can be used as a very useful adjunct, particularly as we're in a period where there's a serious concern about opioid addiction for pain relief, and this is spreading from North America into Europe quite rapidly. This is a good way to nip this problem in the bud, because as we saw there, not only can be used as an adjunct to make the painkilling more effective of pharmaceutical approaches, but in so doing it can reduce the actual physical quantities of the pharmacological painkillers, thereby reducing the likelihood of addiction and dependency, and also helping to wean people off at the end of their treatments. So this is all good, but how does it work? Well, nobody's really quite sure. There do seem to be evolutionary precedents that if you experience a traumatic injury or severe injury, your body goes into a kind of a shock mode where it kills the pain temporarily in order to distract you long enough that you can get away from whatever caused that injury. So it's a survival evolutionary method. This has been experienced by veterans in wartime, where they've been actually shot or even had limbs removed and been able to run and get to safety where they could be treated before they even realised what had happened to them. So we can see how that could work, and this may have something to do with why the distraction approach is so effective in dealing with acute pain, but not quite so effective in dealing with things like chronic pain, ongoing everyday pain, because that seems to form completely different pathways and take completely different routes in the brain and require different approaches in order to distract people from it. So we're still, and physicians are still working on this. What seems to be most important is that your experience and your focus are absolutely vital to dealing with this. And another thing which we've discovered is really important in terms of experience is learning new things. And this brings us to the next section, which is what is dealing with rehabilitation for people who have had limbs amputated, have lost limbs in accidents, or even congenitally have been born without limbs, and are looking to have them replaced with what we call smart prosthetics. A prosthetic is a fake limb, basically a false limb, and a smart prosthetic is one which is powered and can respond to nerve signals. Now, these are fantastic and they allow for amazing new leases of life for people who were unable to carry out everyday tasks and now can, with limbs which can have grasping, opening and closing fingers and moving arms and elbows from the knee downwards to the ankle and the foot, can respond to conditions around them, but also respond to the signals, the nerve signals being sent by the patient, which is great. However, they're very expensive. And in the UK, where I live, we have a nationalised health service. So one of the main considerations, because there's a centralised pot of money and we need to make it go as far as possible, is to try to reduce costs. Smart prosthetics being so expensive, they have to ensure that the people that are using them can use them, are going to get benefit out of them. So there's a procedure which is carried out to check whether they are going to be able to actually use this thing when it's attached, and also to help them to practice. Unfortunately, that procedure hasn't been very good to date, and it's put a lot of people off, or it's not sufficiently trained people to use these limbs, meaning that they've not been able to benefit from them. And here's where virtual reality comes in again, because some very, very clever research that's been carried out using extremely inexpensive consumer level equipment has been able to come up with a much better training and assessment tool for preparing and assessing people to see whether they are going to be able to use a smart prosthetic limb. So have a look at this video and let's see what you think.
It's shaken up the world of games and movies. Virtual reality offers a dive into all-encompassing cyberspace. But back in the real world, gamers are using the same tech for something a bit more serious.
To see the hand there in front of me, but not be wearing a limb, was really surreal. It was really out of this world, if you like.
Kevin lost his arm in an industrial accident 35 years ago. Now he's helping develop a unique project.
So you want to put the lid back on the pot?
A kind of try-before-you-buy scheme for artificial limbs.
By contracting the muscles, as I normally would do when I'm wearing the normal limb, I was opening and closing the hand and able to move items from one location to another.
Those reflexes enable Kevin to make his electronic limb work. It's a vital decider in whether an amputee's suitable for an expensive prosthetic. But up until now, testing for those reflexes took time and wasn't as fun as VR.
We're talking about a 3-day course to actually go and learn how to use the opening and closing of the hand. And you would be moving shapes, opening doors, making sure that they're making sure that you're capable of using it, and then you're sent away to fend for yourself.
So, do you want to go for that Coke can?
That training is even harder if you've never had a limb.
Imagine that for a congenital amputee, they may have never had an arm. So, what are those muscles? So, like, it's very abstract at the moment. It's like imagine grabbing an apple. If you've never done it before, I can imagine it's very difficult to understand what to do.
Ivan's tech could not only speed up the testing, but also train amputees to use the new limb. It's proving a hit with patients.
Some patients said, one in particular said that it's been very emotional to him to see a hand again, but he said in a good way. But he was like, and some of them just didn't want to go out, but they were like, can I have this and just keep playing with it? Like.
Some amputees aren't suitable for an electronic limb. Steve Hopwood's nerves were too badly damaged by his motorcycle accident, but he's helping an MOD-funded project to tackle one of the most distressing aspects of amputation.
A very angry mass of angry pins and needles, like a swarm of bees buzzing around this elbow area.
Phantom limb pain affects most amputees. It's cruel and it's debilitating.
It takes over everything. You know, I couldn't watch telly, I couldn't talk to my family.
Up until now, the treatments were pretty low tech.
So in the early days, they used basically a mirror and mirroring the image of the intact limb in the position of the residual limb, of the missing limb. And just doing that, seeing the reflection or mirror image in the position of your missing limb had an impact on reducing pain.
VR and machinery can pull the same trick, only much, much better.
The brain sends the motor command to the hand to open or close. The eyes are telling the brain, I can see it, the hand is opening and closing. Your spatial awareness is telling you this is how my arm is located in space. You can feel the weight properties of the object you just pick up. And we hope by doing this, the brain will embody the virtual limb, and this will result in a reduction of pain.
This project with Middlesex University could help thousands reconnect with a lost part of themselves.
When I could actually move the hand and I was able to pick the objects up and put them down, I thought, oh, that's something that I'm doing, which I haven't done for 30 years.
Another 30 years and Steve's computerized arm could be animated on to his real world. Games like Pokemon Go are already blending the virtual with reality. It's tech that promises, quite literally, to change the way we see the world.
Amazing results again. And like with the other videos that we've been looking at, it all comes down to the experiential nature of virtual reality. By allowing the mind to feel as if it is and experience the situation of a real life environment, which couldn't really exist in reality, it causes the brain to adapt and prepare itself for something which ultimately will exist in reality. It also means that the patient can be assessed remotely and accurately by somebody who can say, okay, now we understand that that person can reach out, pick up a fruit, handle a knife without any danger to themselves and without any lack of certainty that they will have that knowledge and that have that physical ability, because it's exactly the same nerve signals, it's exactly the same responses in the virtual world that the smart prosthetic limb will have to the nerve impulses in the real world. What was also very interesting about this was the second gentleman who was experiencing the phantom nerve signals and phantom pains, which have long been associated with amputations and loss of limbs, is going to be extremely debilitating and distressing to these patients. And there's really nothing that they can do about it because there's no limb there to stroke or scratch or calm down. It's signals that they have no control over. But by creating an environment, albeit a virtual environment, that gives them a sense of control over it, that gives their brain a sense that this is a real limb, they regain and recapture the ability to control the signals that are coming from it. And this is something which ties in with our next section, which is talking about phobias. And it's talking about another aspect of rehabilitation, which again comes back to fear. Fear and uncertainty and lack of control over situations. This is something that I have personal experience of. I have Crohn's disease, and for 2 years in my late 20s, I was housebound. The unexpected symptom of this, when I was eventually returned to health, albeit briefly, was I became afraid to go outside. I hadn't been outside for a long period of time, and going out was overwhelming for me. Being observed by other people was overwhelming for me, and the lack of control over my environment that I experienced in places like public transport in particular, and just public areas where I was far from home and I couldn't get away to the privacy of my home, whenever I wanted to, was overwhelming, and it would bring about panic attacks. And this is a common experience. Now, this is not the only phobia. Obviously, there's all sorts of other phobias, from arachnophobia to vertigo to you name it. A lot of these come down to a lack of control, and a lot of these can be seriously helped by giving the person a sense of control over the situation. And this is where the next video explains the use of virtual reality for dealing with this aspect of rehabilitation. Let's see what we think.
High-tech. Natalie is agoraphobic and acrophobic, both anxiety disorders. The former involves the fear of places or situations that may cause panic. The latter, a pathological fear of heights. To treat her, doctors at the Van Gogh Hospital in Charleroi, Belgium, are using virtual reality to help her control her fears. The individual who takes on a virtual reality test knows they're in a safe environment, but the brain reacts as if it were real. And it's here that the shift occurs that helps people get better after exercise therapy. Originally, the virtual reality found a key diversion in video games. That's how we were able to use sets for acrophobia or fear of heights, or for post-traumatic stress disorder.
pour l'acrophobie, donc la peur des hauteurs, soit pour le stress post-traumatique.
There are many different kinds of phobias. Ideally, each program would be customized in accordance with the patient's needs. In Switzerland, researchers are working on an alternative reality machine that could offer a more specific experience. For our virtual reality machine, we started from the idea that instead of creating a 3D image content, we'd rather film it. With this kind of camera, we're able to film a panoramic sequence with sound and enjoy a real experience through virtual reality. These devices are growing ever more popular in the treatment of phobias. However, researchers still have much work ahead of them if they're to conquer these complex anxiety disorders.
Again, remarkable results here, and really how these have been achieved are changing the situation to one which the user and the sufferer has control over. If at any point they become overwhelmed, they can simply end the simulation, remove the headset, which means that they feel less fearful, they feel more in control of the situation, and they become more familiar with that sense of lack of fear and control in said situations in the real world, meaning that they're less likely to become overwhelmed or fearful in real world situations. Now, this overwhelm, this lack of control, this lack of agency is something which obviously affects people with phobias, but it can most severely affect people with certain neurological atypicalities, such as people who are on the autistic spectrum and people with Asperger's syndrome, many of whom can become overwhelmed by situations that neurotypical people wouldn't be overwhelmed by. The reason for that is in neurotypical patients, we have the ability to filter out extraneous information. If we don't need to know it, we will cease to be aware of it. A bit like when you walk into a room and it maybe smells strongly of coffee, but after a minute or so you cease to smell the coffee because it's no longer an important sensory stimulus. This is something that many people on the autistic spectrum lack the ability to do, and at much more fundamental levels lack the ability to filter out tactical senses, the sense of touch. Many report being able to feel every square millimetre of their skin at any given time. Many report being able to hear every conversation in a busy room all at the same time. Many report being able to see and be aware of everything that's going on around them simultaneously without being able to focus on any one object. This can be extremely overwhelming, especially in new and unfamiliar situations. Now, I wrote a paper a year or so ago about the use of virtual reality to place sufferers of the autistic spectrum disorders in new environments, but removing any other stimulus apart from sight and removing any other surroundings, people, chatter, so that they could familiarise themselves with new environments before they go there, forming a pattern in the mind and making it easier when they do eventually go there and having to, deal with people around them, noise, smells and so forth becomes a little simpler for them because they are more familiar with the environment. This next video goes a step further. This deals with people who are not at the higher functioning end of the autistic spectrum, like Asperger's sufferers, but people who are so severely affected that they may become non-verbal, lack the ability to speak or communicate verbally with those around them, or lack the ability to easily focus on objects other people are focusing on. So for a number of people to focus on a single task or a single object, it might be difficult for them. This uses similar technology and similar approaches to the ones that we've just seen in order to enable that behaviour. And the wonderful thing is that we've discovered it seems to have an effect on communication skills as well. So let's have a look at this video and see what you think.
Then I think for this class you're going to be in the Lego room. Hi, have a seat. Hey, can you find who made that sound?
So many of my students tell me that their mind is so disconnected from their body that they wish they could leave their body behind. In the world of virtual reality, suddenly you have a child who feels empowered, who feels that they have some control over their world. That's a whole different experience from the real world for people with autism. They're controlling everything. They're in charge.
We have gone through lots of different headsets to figure out the best one. So this is actually a consumer launch Oculus. This one had a nice form factor for kids.
This is Vijay. He's the CEO of a virtual reality company called Florio, hence all the headsets in his basement.
I'm also a dad. We have 2 kids, an 8 and a 4-year-old. And our son is on the autism spectrum. As parents of a child with autism, you're always looking for those moments where you find healthy engagement with something. Is that where your pretend house is?
Yeah.
Manoj has a deep interest in maps and navigation.
It's Ocean City.
We call him our human GPS.
Ocean City, Maryland.
Manoj makes you look at the world in a whole new way. Like, he notices things that I don't notice.
It's right. Look at that.
In late 2015, Google Street View became available as a virtual reality application.
Now it's satellite mode.
It is satellite mode. I had a virtual reality headset, and I was really curious to see whether he would enjoy it or not. Come over here, put it on. He tried on the headset, and he loved it. Vibha was the one who then made the connection as like, what if VR could be used as a medium for coaching skills, and eventually, if you could prove it out, be therapy.
What I've learned is that the autistic brain has neurological differences that can present different strengths and challenges. Our idea is that in VR, it's in 3D space. It involves the same kinds of navigation challenges and communication challenges, and that practice is just more useful and more applicable.
Generally, people with autism tend to have difficulty communicating with others and focusing in group settings. So Vibha and Vijay created a company and started to make VR lessons that could build communication skills.
Florio's lessons work on elements of a very important foundational skill called joint attention.
Joint attention is the ability for 2 people to establish shared focus on the same object. It's a pretty important social skill that many people with autism tend to struggle with. What Vijay and Vibha needed to prove is that VR could actually help children with autism build those types of skills. And they needed a partner to help them do it.
Get in class, young man.
This is Celebrate the Children, a special needs school in northern New Jersey. And like most schools, they're trying to find innovative ways to use technology to help their students.
They can then bring so much more to those face-to-face, real-life interactions, to be able to express their ideas, to feel more in control and less anxious.
Many of the students at Celebrate the Children have more severe forms of autism than Manoj. A lot are nonverbal, so even basic communication is a really big challenge. This is Max. He has limited language skills, and he often struggles with using joint attention in the classroom.
Would you rather swim in an ocean or a pool?
When Florio decided to pilot their program at Celebrate the Children, they wanted to find out if their VR tools could help kids like Max build skills like joint attention.
Okay, so Max, how are you feeling today? Okay, so you're gonna put this on. Sure you're okay with your glasses, right? All right, there we are. Keep looking around. You found the chimp, great job. Awesome. Okay, let's see what else. Is that a bird squawking? Great job, you found it, first try. All right, I'll take it. Thank you, great work, Max. Did you enjoy Florio today? Yes. Great, good work. Bye.
Unbelievable.
That was incredible.
I'm impressed.
Processing language and accessing his language is very difficult for him. And that's where the anxiety comes down, the confidence comes up, and the motivation to come back and keep doing this.
And Max isn't the only student who participated in Florio's program.
Drew, perfect.
We measure several different dimensions of the skill joint attention, and 10 of the 12 kids showed clear improvements in that skill. And these were older kids who had more moderate to severe autism.
Florio is busy building more advanced training situations in virtual reality.
Can I talk to you a moment?
Yes.
This is Manoj beta testing the latest one, a police safety simulation. The police safety module is part of an NIH study in partnership with Children's Hospital of Philadelphia's Center for Autism Research. Florio started building the police safety module after an incident in 2016 where police approached an autistic man who wandered from his group home. The incident resulted in his caretaker being shot by the police.
We basically started building content to simulate what it would be like to have an unexpected encounter with law enforcement and start being exposed to some of the language that the officers would use in that interaction.
All right, you're free to go.
These children are intelligent. It's not a matter of an intellectual disability. It's more how the information is coming in and their inability to organize that information.
Keep looking.
There is this transferal between enjoying an activity in the digital space to then building skills and applying it to the real world. And if you can then build on that, you can then take their engagement to new levels of relationship with finding new ways of play and enjoyment, relationship with their parents. It just opens their worlds up more.
Well, I think you only have to look at the reactions in the faces of the carers, medical professionals that deal with these patients on a daily basis to see just how much of an unexpected and far-reaching impact this treatment using virtual reality had. This is just one of many applications for virtual reality from which we've been experiencing really unexpectedly far-reaching and impactful results. And as we've seen from these videos, this crosses everything from the experience of physical pain, the experience of fear, rehabilitation into the outside world for people who have been otherwise trapped away from it, the reduction of phobias, the treatment of people with mental spectrum disorders. There's so many of these conditions and many more which virtual reality can usefully be applied to, and cheaply and anywhere in the world. There's so many things that we've discovered and so many things yet to discover in the medical world that we can do with virtual and augmented reality that this is probably just the tip of the iceberg, which is why I'm really looking forward to speaking to you after this with Dominic and myself. We're going to be doing Q&As for the next hour or so. And I want to hear your experiences, and we'll do our best to answer your questions about the videos that you've seen. But the more we can learn about this, the more we can spread the word of what can be done with this technology and in these situations, and the more questions that we can ask. How could this be used in this situation? Could this be used for this patient? We can find out. We have the ability with the modern technology and communications technology, particularly LinkedIn and Facebook that you'll be viewing this on, to reach out to other specialists in the field and ask them these questions and connect caregivers, patients, families of patients and technicians with each other in order to facilitate these amazing results and to come up with new ones. So please, the more questions you can ask, the more experiences you can share with us, the more good we can do here. I look forward to speaking to you soon.